Yes. I remember I was on this. Sure do.
Sorry I'm late, folks.
I ain't got no distractions.
All right. We'll call the special meeting to order of, is this on? Okay. Thursday, February 20th, 6 p.m. Would you call the roll, please, Madam Recorder?
Sure. Vice Mayor Watts?
Here.
Councilwoman Knappel?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott? Here. Councilman Abel?
Here.
Councilman Petty?
Here.
Councilman Reese?
Here.
City Attorney Moore?
We've got just three items of unfinished business. The first is we talked a little bit about the transfer of funds, and we were going to do that. Our MTASC financial folks have done a little research for us, and I think Mr. Jekyll can refer to that, to the chart.
I've got a quick question before we start that, not to throw a kink in anything, but, and if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. If we call a special call meeting for a specific issue, do we not have to stick to that original agenda meeting, or can we add items to it if it was a vote of the council? I mean, I don't care either way. I just want to make sure it's something that carries up if we're going to discuss it and make a decision.
I did wonder that also, but I couldn't really remember how we stated it at the last meeting, so.
Because I do remember the last special call meeting, it was called out that we couldn't discuss certain things because it wasn't put on it
If it's
before.
put on the agenda before it goes out, yes, you can. And this is on the agenda as it was sent to the paper. Now, Matt did send something after the fact, but we had already covered that with the chief, that he could go ahead and do that. He had already gotten an email about that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's stick.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. That's all my question I
You
have.
can discuss, but you can't vote.
No, in a special call meeting, you can vote. Because, but you can only discuss and deal with the topics that have been advertised.
You can't discuss.
You can't sit here and talk about something else altogether.
An example being that we have a special call meeting on whatever, and I say before it's been advertised, say I want to add this to the agenda. We can do that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, which is kind of what the mayor was alluding to. That Matt had the question about the fire apparatus and should it go on the agenda, but it already had been turned over. Had it not been turned over to the newspaper and about to be published, you could have put that as a part of the agenda, a special called meeting agenda.
Okay.
But once it's you deliver the public notice of the meeting, that's it.
What if you were to put a change of it in like the post office and then like several other places? Would that not still be?
It depends on how much time that you have to do that. Typically, it's got to be a minimum. We recommend a minimum of 48 hours.
But I'm saying
we don't. And the only reason we do that is the situations in smaller towns where you don't have a local paper.
Okay.
Or it's a situation that it's more of an emergency deal.
Right.
Where you need to have some conversations and make some decisions more quickly.
But like, say in the instance of the fire truck, if that, hadn't been resolved and it needed to be put on, like we could have.
You could have done that as an emergency meeting if it were such, and you'd have to basically state the reasons as to why. If it were a situation where, say it was the only vehicle that you had operational.
Okay.
And then that would qualify as an emergency.
Okay.
Just like if you have a flood or a tornado and you've got damage in the community, dealing with that becomes an emergency. But it has to be an actual, factual, real emergency.
Okay.
Not something you think is an emergency.
Right. Yeah.
And a couple of the items that we did add before had to be covered because we overlooked it, like the salary for our recorder. We overlooked that and all the stuff that happened the last meeting, and we have to give her a salary. So that's the reason a couple of these items were added back on. Okay.
First item on your list, one of the things, I've given you all a piece of paper that has a graph on it. Because we wanted to look at, the conversation at the last meeting was, in part, with in putting money in the investment pool, how much should be put in the investment pool? And so what you have in front of you is actually a cash fund, a cash analysis of the general fund from month to month. So that, and for some of you who've been in our elected officials academy, you know that our finance person typically likes to show a graph that shows where the revenue is from month to month and how it usually represents in cities a kind of a bell curve, where there's a point in time where the revenues are fairly high, usually in December, January, February for cities, but that expenses tend to be more flat or are higher on the parts of the curve that are lower on the scale. You all have pretty much a similar situation. There are months on the front end of a fiscal year and then on the back end where the amount of money you're taking in each month is less than what you're spending, which is what you can see with the blue and the orange or red graph, parts of the graph. So in looking at that, one of our finance consultants and I were chatting about this actually early this morning. It would be to your advantage, the city's advantage, to probably keep somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in a base, where it is now, basically a savings account, where it's easily moved from checking, from savings to checking, to allow for those points in time where the monthly revenue isn't meeting the expenses that you have for the month.
Just to clarify, this is the general fund we're talking about?
This is just the general
Right,
fund.
okay.
We don't even, the utility funds
Right.
is a whole different kind of animal. Because utility funds typically have a steady, with some fluctuations for seasonal usage of, for example, of water. Utilities are fairly straightforward in terms of revenues and usually expenses, except repairs. So whatever money is in the utility could more easily be moved to the investment pool and earmarked within the investment pool that it is water system funds or sewer system funds or some other utility. But with the general fund, because the fluctuations in revenues as well as expenses, we recommend somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 sits more locally, and whatever the rest of it could be put into the investment pool. And I think that probably gets you into the ballpark on the general fund side, about 3 million to maybe 3.2 million. In that kind of ballpark,
So
that could go in.
when you're talking about the general fund and savings and check, you're basically talking about $250 in savings. What do you recommend as far as keeping in checking account? Or are you basically kind of keeping those interacting together?
No, I think you in the checking account, you basically are assuming that the revenues that you're getting in each month. The savings account, I would equate more to like an emergency fund.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So would our CDs account as the emergency fund then, since we have, what, 400,000?
250 and
250. Yeah.
Well, in the CDs.
Mm-hmm. Could we count those as? I know it's not liquid enough because we have to.
It's not really liquid because you're paying a penalty if you get out of it early. Honestly, with those CDs and looking at the interest rate when they mature, I take that money and put it in the investment pool.
Right.
as long as the investment pool is performing better than what you're able to get local CDs from. Now, that may get closer to even. I kind of don't think so, but that's money that I would incorporate into the investment pool down the road.
But you think we ought to put 3 million in the investment pool? Is that right?
I think we can. Yeah, I think we can. Given what we know about where your fund balances are for the general fund right now, and that's just the general fund. I mean, we haven't even, to be honest, hadn't even looked at or thought about what all is in the utility fund in terms of monies. That's a whole nother, that's a part of a whole nother discussion.
Do you know what that would leave us with if we put that much into the investment fund? How much we would have in our general fund if we put that much in?
About
Right.
400,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
300,000 to 400,000 right now, I think.
I think we have 3,400,000 in general, around that much.
In that ballpark.
How does the local sales tax play into this? Of course, we can get it out at any time, but
The local
the
sales tax.
fluctuation,
All of these numbers actually came from the previous fiscal year.
okay.
We didn't take into account the bump that you all started getting last year with the regaining part of the local option sales tax. We really didn't want to do that in light of what's sitting out there at the moment in terms of referendums.
I do have a question on that local option. So, for example, right now we have on the ballot the county's option to add it back.
Right.
I'm getting conflicting reports that should the county get their taxes back, they're going to take 50% of our local option into their coffers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
It'll basically go back to what it was before.
okay. So basically, we keep that option off. We keep the money to the city, and the county, and we're yeah. Okay. That's the way I understood it. I just want to make sure that was it. Okay.
It literally goes back to the way it was before. In this case, the county would utilize their portion for other expenses, because they now no longer have the school bond issues
Yeah, I should track
that they
it.
were doing.
Then how much revenue would we lose then if they take that back?
Well, behalf of what was the increase actually.
If we had lost all of it last time, we would have lost 800,000 a year. I don't know how much their portion will be to take back.
It's pretty high.
I was thinking it
It's,
was, but I couldn't remember.
it's not small change.
Right.
Yeah,
I just couldn't remember how much it was.
it's in our bed.
Which is precisely why we wanted to look at what your expenses were and revenues were prior,
Oh, I see what you're
See
saying.
that?
I got you.
Yeah.
so that it doesn't, if in fact you do wind up losing that piece, you're not being adversely affected by what we've recommended that you do.
Yeah.
You wind up in better shape in another situation that couldn't tell you, it's a flip of a coin, I think.
Okay.
So, that's kind of our recommendations to you all in terms of
Okay.
the general fund,
Okay.
Okay.
utility fund. You have, I think, I suspect you have more flexibility with the utility fund.
Okay, thank you. The second item, we're gonna have to table because the person we thought we could recommend, we aren't quite sure yet, so we're still searching for that perfect person for our CMFO. We're having some help on that, again, from the finance department, it's MTask, and another CPA is helping us right now with some of our budget stuff, with the superintendents, supervisors, excuse me. Then last time, we somehow overlooked the compensation for our new city recorder, and in talking with, did I miss it? I'm sorry.
Do you wanna deal with what you wanna have move forward with investing money?
Oh, well, sure, if we want, I mean, can we do that now? I thought that was for the next time, so. Okay,
That's why you have special called meetings.
okay, we can go ahead and do it. I just thought
No,
that was
that's
your
not.
report to do.
Do we have
No.
copies of that fund balance available? Because we were talking about, we had the copies, I didn't bring my copies with me
I've got
from
it
last
in the
meeting.
office, yeah.
Okay.
It's 3 million and 2 million something. Maybe get it.
No, I'd
Just
much
go
rather
figure
keep that
something.
local
Oh,
sales
yeah.
tax option here in the city. Obviously, we got way less debt, we got a lot more revenue, we're doing better things with the money. It's like, I'd rather have that.
There's plenty of things you're gonna need to be doing with that one.
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
can I read it to you, or do you need copies?
Love-
Okay, in the general fund, it's Wilson Bank, we have $3,455,560. It's, right now, their interest rate is 0.45%. So it's not 1, it's 0.45%. In the Citizens Bank, we have a savings, we have water and sewer, that's 2,562,256,000. Let me go backwards there. 2,562,256. Sorry about that. And that's at an interest rate of 0.1%. So it's not, it's 1/10%, basically. Right now, the local option, or the local government is 1.69, I believe, for those.
What was the first balance in Wilson? I apologize.
3.455. 3.455. At a 0.45% interest rate.
And then we have 2 CDs, one with Smith County Bank and one with Wilson Bank and Trust, 150 and one 250,000.
And what's the,
That's 1.05 at the Smith County and 1.10, 1.1%. Wilson.
does anybody remember what those interest rates were on the, I know they were fluctuating interest
It's
rates.
1.69 right now.
Is that 1.69?
And we do have the street aid, which is 94,000.
So we're looking at, and it's gone upwards of 2. We're looking at CDs that are getting 1%, and then less than 0.5% on our general fund and our water. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. We're gonna gain a lot more revenue sticking it in there.
Absolutely. And we can turn it around in 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I don't like leaving just 300 or 400. I think we can dip our toes in. We can move money in just as easy as we can out. I'd
Yeah.
rather just leave $1 million in and then just move the 2 over, or the 2.4, and leave 1 in general fund until we get everything settled, and then we can decide if we need to lower it. If we want to reduce the amount in general fund.
Well, we're not penalized. So, and we had 24 hours. He was recommending 250K in savings, and then you were talking about just revenue fund balance, monthly revenue fund balance inside of the general fund checking, which what half, we throw $500,000 into it, and then I mean, why would we not put everything else into that to get a 1.69 or higher % interest rate?
That'd be my thinking.
Like,
I don't see a reason to even leave 400,000 in if it's something we can get within 24 hours. Because what bill is going to come due that we need to get paid within 24 hours?
Well, I agree. I would say we can always come right back and put that more into it. Just kind of see how it works with everything minus $500,000 or 400, whatever we will decide. See how it works, and if we want to go ahead and throw another whatever inside of it, let's throw another whatever inside of it.
I don't know. I would just leave a little bit extra in there. Just, I know that 24 hours, but a lot could happen. There's some, I would just.
Can I throw one thing in? We're just talking about the general fund right now, aren't we?
That's all we looked at.
Okay.
It can be it can be all the funds.
What Mr. Cross explained was we can put up to 99 different separate listings of accounts in these. So if we wanted to put from the general fund, for instance, we're gonna have to have money for the water tank project, we're gonna have to have money for the water line on future,
And all of that comes out of your utility system.
right.
And that can still,
Not your general fund.
Right.
24 hours, we can
But-
still bring that money to them.
I'm just thinking, if we were looking at both of these, we could set up funds for, well, we do have a project, the walking track, that's not as much, but we've got a couple things we're looking at, but we can earmark funds within that investment pool that we can pull out of any of those funds, the way I'm understanding it.
So, real quick, Mayor, is on the CDs, are those general fund CDs? Or are
You're
they,
just,
I think one's general and one's water sewer.
I don't think it's designated.
Thought, is that
here.
right?
That sounds right.
Well, it's
I
not
feel like it
designated on
is, but I
here.
could be wrong.
we can't pull the CDs out till they're.
Till they
done, so
mature.
can-
We
yeah.
just re-upped those, what, a month or two ago anyway?
Yeah, so we can hold on to those, but I mean, what about, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, so we're here to discuss. What if we throw 3 million of that general fund into that, state fund, and then we throw another, we throw 2 million on the water sewer to the state, that leaves us with about, I mean, give or take 500 in each fund to just, we can see how it's working out. If it's working out good, we can move more. I mean, what do y'all think about that? And that throws $5 million at a 1.69% interest rate per month. That's a
What does
nice
everybody else think
number for the
about it?
taxpayer.
Is there
Oh,
a
Barbara.
minimum fund that we have to have in water and sewer? A minimum amount?
No,
As long as we operate at a
no, only because
break even.
you're, I mean, you probably want some money because of having, but accessibility of funds is pretty quick with the investment pool.
Yeah.
In the sense that, you know, if you've got emergency repairs to be done, you know, water line breaks, you're gonna have to go spend money right now.
And typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, typically you get a bill. Am I right?
So you got usually till what, last the end of the month to pay it?
Yeah. So we get a bill. We got 24 hours, so you
On
know,
the 15th.
it gives us 29 extra days. You know, if it's at 30.
Yeah,
Um,
that can make us a whole lot more money than
Yeah.
we need.
so I guess, and I'm just making this motion, but we can continue discussion about. But my motion would be to move $3 million from the general fund. That was 3.455 million. Move 3 million of that into the investment pool, and then from the citizens fund that was 2.562 million. Move 2 million of that into the investment pool. That puts us at $5 million in there, and then we can revisit it if we need to revisit it down the road. That'd be my motion.
Okay, I have a motion to move 3 million from the general fund into the investment pool and 2 million from the sewer and water into the investment pool. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, is there further discussion on this? Anyone who hasn't had a chance to address this?
I just have one other thing. Would fund balances be taken into consideration for grants and things like that? Like if we have it moved out of our general, like with water and sewer, and we have it in a totally separate account, would that matter at all for grants, anything like that?
Because it's still your money.
Right.
Okay.
It still shows up, just like CDs.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that wouldn't be an
That's a
issue.
good thing to check, Bill. Yeah.
It's just instead of a local bank, it's now in their,
The
Holding.
state investment pool.
yeah.
And that one, just to clarify too, that 1.69% that's the 1.69% monthly return, correct?
Currently.
Okay.
It fluctuates.
It-
All right,
yeah,
so-
And it does fluctuate because we,
That's
2 or 3 months ago, it was 1.8.
That's $85,000 a month right now.
It's a
In
yearly
interest.
interest rate, right?
No, it's that's what the
The 1.69 is a yearly.
That's
but
your
it- but it
month.
fluctuates,
month.
it fluctuates every month.
But what I'm saying,
But yeah,
it's a year.
calculation, yes,
it's a 1 year
calculation.
calculation. It may be 1.69 this month and it could be 1.8, but they're going to divide it by 12.
So this number right here is divided by 12. Is that
That's, yeah, that would be for, you would assume a year.
a year?
But,
Okay.
but Mr. Cross said, I mean, there, like anything, there is risk, because 2015, it was .05, so it's
No, he
goes,
said it was insured.
it goes with the, well, I mean, that's the interest rate.
Okay, well, I mean,
Interest rate.
we exist, so if it does, we can move the money back out. It's just the
Well, it's
same.
gonna be similar.
Well,
It's-
that's the
not
thing,
just-
where are you gonna move it to? Because if the investment pool is doing that poorly, guess what your local banks are doing?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Did everyone have a chance to look at that website, or to kind of have questions and answers, and some of the pros and cons?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
economy's up, our interest rates are gonna be there unless the Fed messes with it or whatever, but I mean, we're,
As long as the money's insured, we'll be okay.
yeah.
Any further discussion from anyone who hasn't had a chance to? Questions? Okay, and I'll call for the question. All in favor of moving the money? Any opposed? So it carries unanimously. I'll have to get together with NIMTAS to follow up on the paperwork on that, and then we'll, do we need to bring any of that paperwork back to be reconsidered, or just go ahead? Okay. Okay.
You can just go right ahead.
So this is giving me authority to go ahead and sign off and move it. I just want to be clear about that. Okay, good. All right. All right, the second, thank you. Hopefully we'll make some great dividends on that. So the CMFO, we're tabling that. And then the compensation, if we had the city recorder, or if we had the CMFO, excuse me, part of what we were looking at, some of this is our revenue in and out, but he's gonna take a closer look at that if we had, how that
Well-
would maybe pay for it.
In terms of, the conversation last time, there was a concern about how we're gonna pay for people, the CMFO specifically. I know your auditor had mentioned something about the interest would probably cover the cost for having a CMFO. And there may be some validity to that, based on the amount of money that you want to put into the investment pool, if the interest rates keep approximately where they're at. But one of the things that, because you all didn't ask me, I'll tell you now. One of the things that we were concerned about initially is that because we were just strictly looking at the general fund and putting in perhaps 3 million, not even playing with the utility fund. If you had done 3 million at 1.6 or so, you'd get about 36,000 a year, roughly, which would probably, when you consider the salary plus benefits, it's a proportional amount of what you're gonna pay for a CMFO, based on an assumption that they're gonna get $24 an hour, much like your other supervisors are getting, or whatever, that dollar amount is. One of the things that I would suggest to you all is that the CMFO actually needs to be paid out of 2 different funds, or 3, depending on how you got it set up. Their salary audit and benefits ought to come out of general fund as well as the utility systems. Which is, oh, by the way, where a lot of cities do that.
What's the purpose of that?
Because you break up where the cost is coming from to more closely represent where some of their work is going to be.
Is there a particular percentage you recommend?
It kind of depends on how many bodies that you have involved in the financial side of the utility. Probably on the order, given what I know of your city, I would probably say something on the order of a 60-40 or 70-30
Yeah.
general fund to utility.
I agree with that, but also like let's open that box. Other areas in admin that are working on utilities, not paying them out of the general fund, and so we basically set
Well,
proportionally, but you just say how much working over here on it, take that money out, proportionally how it would go, and that also
City recorder in and of itself won't do very much, but the folks that you have working in the front office.
these two positions
who are
here.
taking the bills
Mhm.
from folks and having to do the accounts receivable and the accounts payable portions of that, yes. I mean, a part of their responsibility should be attached to the utility system, because a portion of their work involves being involved with the utilities.
Right now.
In the accounting sense.
Right now, the cashier is involved,
Yes.
but she does come from the sewer and water account. Not-
Cashier does come from.
Not the clerk,
Well, and it's-
because that's kind of how it's been set up, as well as, of course, the sewer and the water folks.
Well, and the CMFO person should be set up something like that, but more
Okay.
staggered, because they're gonna do more. Typically, they're gonna wind up doing more into the general fund.
Okay.
So I think it'd be worth doing just a small, nothing big, but a small little audit, just basically saying what percentage of time is spent and resources is spent working on utility projects, what percentage of time is working on regular administrative
Well-
city projects.
And we have the ability to go around and ask some other communities that are similar to you all in terms of the services that you provide, who have CMFOs now, and find out how much of your time is spent dealing with financial aspects of a water system, sewer system, and how much is on the general fund. And quite honestly, I can, right off the top of my head, I can think of about 4 different cities in a similar population range to Carthage.
Which cities would those be?
It would be Ashland City, Dover, Portland's on the high end, but they've got a really very active CMFO person. And the other one was the city of White House. So they're a little bigger yet.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask Les and Steve how they think that's gonna affect y'all's department. Do you see any problem with it?
I don't see no problem with it.
Basically, we budget for our departments, and the payroll for our employees is budgeted in it, so I don't see it really affecting.
Just one check.
Because Public Works is doing both,
Well,
in essence, right?
well, but we have Public Works, which is the general fund, and we have the water and sewer division of that, which comes out of water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
That's
I
the
have 2
collection.
employees paid out of water and sewer, and the rest is paid out of streets.
So you've already got the divisions
Yeah.
in there.
Pretty
Okay.
much divided up
Okay.
already.
All right.
And then sewer plant, the water plant, the 2 people who have
I
water and
don't know how
sewer.
they do theirs, I don't,
Yeah.
water and sewer plant.
Well, I mean, it's
We
straight,
got water and sewer
straight out
plant.
of water sewer.
And
The only one in
it's
office
for
is
the sewer
the
plant.
cashier right now, because she takes the water, the payments, basically.
Well, the CMFO is gonna be the person who's responsible for tracking
Okay.
money, issuing paychecks,
Okay.
writing out paychecks, W-2s, all those good things.
So,
That's something to consider when you get to the place and you have someone
Yeah.
identified, that this is how you need to set up how they're getting paid
Okay.
with the next budget. I don't recommend doing that right now, but with the next budget, absolutely.
then we did not get the compensation set up for our new city recorder last time, and then talking with, and tasking some other places around, and talking with Danielle, it is a salary position, and she's comfortable if we start at 19 with through the probation period, and then to go up to 20 once she starts getting some of her credentials that she has to get. And that would be a salary position at that point, if that meets with y'all's, okay.
What were,
We
the
were
past
paying-
two?
Yeah.
Well, when it was just one person who was a supervisor, it was the 24 something. But in this case, that recorder position will no longer be a supervisor, it'll be a separate situation just with the records, and then the CMFO will actually be the supervisor for the clerk and the cashier in the office. It's a financial thing, so that person would be considered a supervisor. This will be a unique position in that it's salaried and it is still an officer, but it's not a supervisor capacity. That's in talking with MTask and several other places around, that's what we,
Okay, so that's where I'm at too. I'm not on the money, but it's no longer a supervisor position because if we go the CMFO, we're looking at the CMFO being a supervisor, just the financials. Who's the supervisor as far as the admin goes?
he or she would be the supervisor for the clerk and the cashier. It would be all financial together.
So all that falls under so far as that, and this recorder position is an officer, but it's just a position in itself, no supervisory roles. Okay.
Right. They just
So
in
who
charge.
supervise? the
So
rest
basically,
in,
yeah, the CMFO, who's we're looking at as a part-time position.
Well, I think eventually it would have to be full-time, that's what
Have to
we're
be
talking about,
full-time.
yeah.
Okay. Well, last we all talked, I think we were looking at part-time.
That was just a temporary kind of fill in till we get our help through the budget.
I'm not seeing at our city size the need for, I mean,
Well, I can read
I'm
you the
not-
job description, it'd take us a full-time, if you'd
As
like to
far
have
as-
that. CMFO, yeah.
well, we were talking about basic audits, basic tax preparation. The last time that's
Well, let me,
what I remember speaking
I'll be
about.
glad to bring you it's a huge. if
You know,
look-
weekly reconciliations, things like that.
It's a daily, I'll be glad to bring you the job description, because we had to split them out. One of the reasons it's been so difficult for anyone in that position is you've got to have a really good financial backing, and on top of being able to do the recording and keep up with all those records. There's a mound of records in the back, keeping up with the building permits, everything that has, so that's one reason we need like a lot of, Mr. Jekyll's saying, a lot of little towns now have a specific financial person, because it's so important that we have someone with that kind of background. We're talking about several $1 million here.
If you've got that, I'd love to see the.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
The job description, yeah.
I mean, if we truly need it, I mean, I understand, but it's
Just don't
more,
say that we do.
yeah. It's just one of the things.
Well,
I think it would be helpful, but I don't think as far as full time.
CMFO is good, well, maybe not right now.
No,
Might be.
yeah, down the road, yeah. I mean,
But-
Obviously.
but you're eventually, not eventually, that person's gonna have to be working at least 3 days a week, every week. At a minimum,
yeah.
because they have to supervise. at
So we're
least
This is the ad that went in and it's gonna go into the paper again. I can make copies, you can read it, whatever you want, but basically it's, we're hiring for the position Chief Municipal Financial Officer, CMFO. Strong background in finance is needed. A certified public accountant or someone with a college degree in accounting is preferable. They must be able to get the certified municipal officer certification in 1 year, which is not easy. They have to be bonded. The CMFO prepares the budget, serves as financial administrator with duties included but not limited to preparing daily cash deposits, coordinating certificates of deposit, overseeing the payment of all invoices and receipts of all monies, balancing all checkbooks, co-signing all pay checks, preparing monthly financial reports for Board of Aldermen and City Supervisors, monthly reconciling of accounts receivable for utility building, makes all necessary entries into the general ledger, prepares quarterly and state and federal reports, as well as coordination of all audits, attends continuing education classes, must be able to apply accounting principles to municipal finance and have the ability to, of course, work well with the subordinates. That's just a drop right there, what that person has to do. And that's why it's been so difficult for one person to do all of that, plus the records, and why so many little towns, I think, are turning to, this is our financial person who oversees the clerk and the cashier, and then we have the records person who takes care of all of that stuff, which is huge in itself. All of our building permits, also the floodplain permit person is now the recorder. That's a big thing TEMA and FEMA have come down with. Grants, overseeing all the paperwork with the grants. It's just a very efficient way to run city government if we can have the separate line of finance and a separate of the records.
I'm just looking at as far as transactions. I mean, let's look at how many transactions are we going through. That transaction list is going to put your workload on there. We're a $2 million company per se, with expenses of 1.9 million. I'm just saying I don't feel like it's a full-time position. I'm not disagreeing that it's needed. I'm just saying I'm looking at it from the standpoint of if this is a business.
You're bigger than a $2 million business.
Yes, we are.
You're just looking at the general fund. That doesn't count the utilities.
Okay, so so let's double it.
We're talking
try to
close to
triple
6
it.
million.
Okay, let's triple it. We're a $6 million business. Okay,
Yeah,
still saying on a $6 million business.
with reporting functions that you've got that are being placed on us by the state of Tennessee.
We need it. I'm just saying. I'm talking about full time versus part time.
What is considered
I've got a
full-time?
list of 17 cities who do just that.
Yeah, full-time is
Of your-
just 40
of your
hours a
size.
week.
40
Didn't say
hours.
Dover was one of them.
Dover's
And it's
one
gonna
of them.
fluctuate during the year.
Waynesboro's
Some parts of
another.
the year they may need 3 days, and some parts of the year full-time.
Yeah,
Or more.
So, or
yeah,
extra.
yeah. And that's kind of where I'm.
And doing-
That's where I'm at. Do we
during
want to make it a
audit-
salary position?
During
even?
audit, those people are here practically 12 hours a day. I mean, trying to figure out doing budget.
Like Jacqueline's saying, I mean, this is the time we need them. And then there's times where it's kind of like it's slower. Again, just like a CPA would, I mean, we all have a CPA, we all see our CPAs, they're working their butts off right now. And then there's a slower season, not to say they're not working, but they're not working
But-
like they would be.
But nothing slows down. We have payroll every month, we have ledgers every day, we have cash deposits every day, you have to oversee. It's like any business, you don't just say, this month I'm gonna take care of finance, but not the rest of the time.
Exactly, it's just like any other business. So during those other businesses, again, I'm looking after the taxpayer dollar here. I'm not saying it's not needed. I think it's needed. I'm just saying as far as where we stand as far as if it's part-time or full-time. And I think that's the only difference we might have here.
Hi.
I apologize. I obviously thought it started at 6.
Oh, okay.
It's okay, it was advertised.
Well,
It's on the
I
agenda.
thought it was 5, and then I saw the agenda, and I thought, oh, it's 6. I must have misremembered it. So,
But I mean, I think I've said what I need to say on it. I mean, I'd like to hear from you all.
No, it was
Why
advertised
y'all-
as 5, I'm sorry.
I think we could start off part-time and then figure it out, but let's see, jumping both feet in right off the bat, full-time.
It's gonna be a big learning curve.
We
be
still have to find
part-time.
somebody. We don't have anybody
I
yet.
think so too.
Well, we have
And
one
fairly new people.
One person who's already come in to help us with some of our budget numbers, and we have to advertise it again, but he might be willing, he's a CPA.
What happened with Wayne or whoever it was that was
Well,
gonna?
he is overwhelmed right now with the stuff he's doing, and some other things came up, so he has had to bow out. But this is someone he's recommended, and some other people have recommended too, so.
What salary is this person that has applied or talked to you about requesting?
We haven't talked salary at all. I told him what a supervisor's salary is here. And interestingly enough, he might be willing to take that. Only because it's closer drive for him, for one thing. he might be willing to talk to us about it. And he was excellent. He came in and he immediately helped bring up all the budget things that we needed. But again, it's not set in stone yet.
Are you at liberty to say who it is and give us some idea?
Well, I better not yet, because he's working with the firm right now.
Okay.
I think we just need to wait till we have somebody, and two, it's not anything we can decide tonight anyway, so.
I agree.
I mean, there's kind of we got more pressing matters to talk about right now. I think we need to get some names and then decide what we want to do after that. Because we need to decide how much we want to pay her.
Yeah. I mean, I
don't know why
I'm
we
okay
get paid, but
working for free.
I mean, we work for free, so.
I mean, I think that's a fair recommendation. I think that's a fair.
So we'll just table the thing about the CMFO. We'll be talking to some more people. The ad is going to go back into the paper, but we do have to we may have to have some help in between. So we have already said that there's a cap on bringing a CPA in to help us, and that might be what this person does for a while, because we've got to get through budget season.
Yeah.
That's very
I
important.
mean, we authorize the money, so
Right.
just.
Okay. So what we've thrown out there is the
What we start at.
we're gonna do
Compensation.
$19 an hour, and through probation, then to 20, and it's a salaried position.
How long was the probation period?
90 days now with us.
90 days, okay. And then as far as the training goes,
It will happen over a period of a year,
About
probably,
a
at
year.
least.
okay.
I make a motion that we start her out at 19, saying what y'all said, and with probation period, and go to 20.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a
Second
second to
motion.
that? Did you second?
Yes.
Oh, okay, we have a second. Discussion?
Yeah, we have this in writing, though, make sure all this written down, so what she can expect.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right, we've got-
No, we just don't say this and this is what it's
Yeah.
gonna be.
Okay, so the motion is to start at 19 an hour through the probation period, and then go up to 20 after, and it's a salaried position. Okay. Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, got that, thank you. Then the next item is Mr. Jekyll's going to talk to us about all of the great ideas that they've come up with to make our city charter comply with state and other things.
Well, I sent you all two different documents. The first one, the biggest one is what is your existing charter? With parts of it where we were recommending alterations, changes, additions, and deletions. And we kind of start off slow as you go through it. But there are some things that we've asked, I think, you all about. For example, on the third page, our attorney had asked if the board wants to give voting rights to non-resident property owners. You don't do that now. So that's why the question is there, because some communities do allow for that. Frankly, that's one of those things, that's a local preference. We don't care one way or the other.
That what you were saying in that section, that's where that would need to go in.
I'm not sure if that's the right section or not. I'd have to check with our attorney. That's where I think it occurred to her that that's something. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure, and that's something we ought to talk about too, is when people are eligible to vote in the city.
And that would, yeah, because you have to find out what election will they be, does that eligibility start?
Well,
Will it
the
start
eligibility legally anymore, it's, you can't, the courts have said you can't allow more than, you can't mandate more than a year of residency for someone either to vote or to run for office. And you kind of, some folks have allowed certain non-resident property owners to be voters.
I know DeKalb County does that.
Yeah.
Now, if we allow that,
Yeah.
does that business entity have one vote, or is it one per owner? In other words, if it's a situation where there's more than one owner.
And that varies a little bit too. Typically, I think what I have seen is that whomever has 50% or more ownership interest, but there are some communities that will allow, you know, up to 2 owners of if there's multiple owners, up to 2 can vote, but no more than 2.
I asked in Smithville, because they allow it at DeKalb, you know, Smithville and DeKalb County. They only allow one person to vote, but the person, it can't be an LLC, it can't be a corporation, it has to be
A person.
a person own it. So if you owned a business in an LLC and your property was owned in the LLC, then you couldn't vote. So
No.
it had to be owned by just sole proprietor,
Yeah.
right?
And I agree with that.
And I
like,
do too. So like you wouldn't have like Walmart voting and stuff like that.
But like, you know, you have someone like you know, someone who owns a business right on Main Street, giving them the other thing is are they voting on city matters, or are they using that voting for state matters or federal matters?
Well, just
Can't.
in
They
your
would just only
it's
vote
just
it on
for
the
city.
city.
It would just be a city. Okay. And so I'm just trying to look at that outlook, how the ballot box works if they're going in there, and they're going in there like, let's say
They would make the ballot like
it'd be a different ballot for that person.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
And
I
that's
asked that.
the election commission
As a
has
matter
that
of fact,
capabilities.
If I'm not mistaken, I think those individuals, and it's a recent law change, that those individuals actually have to vote by absentee ballot.
Right, that's right too.
They can't go to the precinct or the to
Okay, so it's an absentee ballot, a special
is.
ballot.
They set up a special
Okay.
ballot.
Okay. So and in that aspect, where if we're not doing corporations and it's not being used as state and federal, it's literally focusing on where their business is. You know, I'm trying to see why we wouldn't
I
want
think
that
it's,
to
I mean,
happen.
I've had a lot of people since
Right.
day one say like, we want to be able to vote
Yeah.
in city elections if we own property in the
They're
city, which I
investing.
agree.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
been a thing, so. It'll be a lot
But would that
to sort out that
extend to
way.
like landlords, like if they own a rental property, are we gonna extend it to them? 'Cause
Yeah, I think it would.
But I think you just get one vote, like, it's not like Upper
Yeah,
Cumberland,
not-
like,
They
you don't
get
get a
6
vote
houses
per,
and 6 votes.
per meter, you just get
Yeah.
one vote,
Yeah.
so.
So is
Well,
that
if they are already living in town and they've got some homes, some rental properties, do they get their regular vote plus?
no?
Just one
No,
vote.
yeah.
One person, one
It'd be
vote.
one vote, and it's just yeah. I wouldn't think that we would.
Where this would have an application, kind of to your point, is if you had someone who lived out in the county and happened to own multiple homes in the city. And in which case, even in that situation, you only get one person, one vote.
I see it like this too. They're paying city taxes, and so if they're not able to vote, they're being taxed without representation.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that, you know,
Yeah.
But
No
I'll throw
taxation with
something else to clutter things up a little bit. You know, you talked about not letting an LLC, but if it's a privately owned LLC and the sole owners live in the county,
Right,
should they
I'm
be
just-
allowed to?
I think.
I think
Yeah, I mean,
I see I know what you're talking about, and I see, and that's stuff that we can sort out and ask the other counties that do how they treat that. Because I'm sure there are a lot of people that own property as the LLC that live in the county that want to vote, and that would kick them. That would
And we can
make them not be able to
differentiate
vote.
between an LLC and a single member LLC.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is, if it's something we really want to pursue, is to find out other counties who do it and cities who do it, and then
Yeah, you
try and
wanna-
model
you
off
wanna-
of there.
You wanna stick to cities.
So can we?
Right.
We'll stick
Yeah,
to cities.
cities.
And there are no cities that do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do we want to ask the attorney to investigate the language we would want to add to our charter to amend that?
Yeah, I think and Gary had some more insight too, but, for example, the mayor aldermanic charter has that language specifically in it, so you could start with that. There's, plenty of case law to show you how those parameters are laid out. I'd probably suggest sticking with something simple like that. That at least is gonna get every property owner one vote, if they don't already live in the city, so. And that's probably what Gary would suggest we do, is start with that provision from the general law mayor aldermanic charter, and if you wanna tweak it, you can look at it, but.
Yeah.
That works. I say it's something we start working on. However we proceed with it, it's something I want to see happen soon.
Should we first investigate on our own, talk to some other towns before we spend legal, money on legal?
And that's something Gary can do, he's got, that's already in the
Yeah.
charter.
We
so-
have an attorney who's looked through all this.
Okay.
Trust me when I say, we know exactly, I know exactly what Todd's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's the most common provision that any city has, and so it's well tried.
Say we just,
So would it be a good idea if we could get MTS to send us
Sure.
some cities we can investigate that have that already in there?
give us some ideas how to model off of. I do want to see it. Like,
Yeah.
I've
been wanting to see it for a while, and just never brought it
More
up.
than a
so.
couple, actually.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree. Yeah. Let's move forward.
sorry.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the next one.
Before we go on, one of the things you're gonna notice throughout this, there are some things that we've highlighted, just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Emphasis?
Basic changes, like changing city council to town council, and from city judge to town judge, little odds and ends, cleaning up, housekeeping, that's the word I was looking for. There's a number of housekeeping little things
So yeah.
that we've thrown in.
So that way we just have our language straight as far
Well, it's
as.
consistent.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be the town of Carthage, well, everybody ought to
What
be.
qualifies a city and a town is different.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Why do we go between city of Carthage and town of Carthage?
I have the faintest clue.
Okay. So I guess we have to call it town of Carthage Police now. We're getting you all new stuff.
No.
I think it costs money.
City kind of sounds a lot,
Yeah, so we're gonna call it
We're
town
not
hall
quite
now.
there yet.
Town kind of sounds a little, more relaxed environment. So
Providences and
Um,
stuff like that in New Orleans.
So as you flip back page 4, a lot of what's on page 4 is actually generally housekeeping things that should be a part of your charter. That actually, the things in blue that are underlined actually aren't currently in your charter.
we don't have any colors over here. We're colorblind.
Black and white.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Y'all printed off in black and white, huh?
Well, that's all we
They-
have.
We're trying to save money.
Look every time you can.
What, do you got underlining?
Yes.
Okay. Those places that are underlined,
Okay,
let's try that.
okay.
The stuff that is underlined are things that we, and so I'll have to explain that too. The underlining stuff is stuff that is not currently in your charter. The things that have the lines through them, the red line, what we call redlining, Those are things that are existing, but we would reword them or take them out in some fashion. So the fourth page is kind of symptomatic of what, a lot of what we've talked about is there's some things that need to be added. For example, you know, when you should really have in your charter, you know, the days and times of that you expect your meetings to be, your regular board meetings. That's kind of a standard
That
clause that goes in the charter.
that actually is in our ordinance, but,
I know it's supposed to be in your charter.
right, the charter just
That's
says.
why we recommended it be done here,
Yeah, yeah.
because it becomes then the standard all the time, unless you have a special call meeting.
Okay.
And there's no disputing days and times. So most of that is, like I said, it's generally housekeeping. One of the things that, let's see. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, as you go into page, onto the next page on what is C5, I guess, in your alls. There's a number of things that we recommend actually taking out. And you can see there's a number of the things on that page that are crossed out. The one thing in particular that our attorney looked at was what was, I guess, was D at the bottom of that page is having to, she's numbered it as number 8. Any vacancy in the office of alderman. About how, in general, how vacancies get filled for council members. And you can look at this, if you've got questions about any of this at all. I'm trying to not spend all night walking through all of this. But I do want to make sure I hit the pieces that are important.
I do.
Questions?
I do have a question on this vacancy.
Which part?
The whole thing. Well, as far as procedures go, if this is the place to be, but if there's a vacancy and that person comes in, the city seems to work differently in the county in this area, but I don't know if we've been doing it right. Where let's say that we have a vacancy and we vote as a council to put that vacancy in it, that person isn't technically a part of the council until the end of that business meeting. Is that correct or not correct?
No.
No, as soon as they're sworn in, they become a part of the council.
Right.
Okay, so
Whenever that occurs.
if that occurs right in the middle of council meeting, okay,
Beginning, middle, and
Okay.
wherever that occurs,
okay,
that's when they become part of the city council.
okay,
And they take the oath of office and they, sign off on that oath.
at that moment, okay.
Sure do, just like anybody else. So we've tried to remove language that you really don't need to have in some places as it relates to vacancies.
It's just vacancy in general, not reasons why the vacancy happened.
Right.
Okay,
The reasons why
don't really matter, there's just a vacancy. and
No,
so-
it's how you go about dealing with it.
Okay.
That we're talking about, yeah. If you flip back then to page 6, I think we finish up that part of, some of the stuff about the vacancies. And in particular, and I've actually kind of highlighted it for myself, the section on conduct and removal of officers. Ms. Hodge has added a sentence at the very beginning of that, which is actually the legal aspect of the ouster provisions in the state statutes.
It's a reference for ouster instead of the whole spelling it out.
Yeah, in terms of the process that you all had, that goes away, and it literally, that TCA reference, the 847-101, is that part that deals with removal, ouster proceedings. The why and the how and all those
Doesn't,
things.
yeah, it doesn't change, it just references it, correct?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And the only way that ever changes then, by referencing it here, the only thing that would ever change is if the state of Tennessee changes that process.
Gotcha.
Which sometimes they do. I mean, it varies things, but I mean, they amend state statutes all the time.
Yeah, okay. But we just it just falls, it just puts us
Whatever.
in falling under that, so if they do change it, we don't have to come change our charter.
Yes,
We just fall right in.
Right.
Gotcha.
yeah, without having to deal with all the rest of that stuff. And then as you go down through there, then we've kind of cleaned up some of the language and added some as it relates to the appointment of the chief of police and other officers. And really, I think we've added things that that actually give you more detail, much like other charters have, especially for city recorder, because you don't have a lot in your charter as terms of what the city recorder is supposed to be doing in general.
Is that typical to have job descriptions?
This isn't a job description, but it's some of the duties of the city recorder.
Like a generality duty?
Yeah, it is actually,
Okay,
which is why we put it in.
okay.
You find it in most of the general law charters, that there are these kinds of descriptors are included for city recorders. Which is why, as you read through it, because it's actually, city recorders actually have this responsibility in most places under most general law charters. So we've taken pieces of other general law charters and added them here for that position. And I've already seen a place where I'm gonna probably give her a hard time. When you flip to page 7, number 6, and this is kind of a personal thing to me. The recorder shall also perform any other duties imposed upon him by this charter or by ordinance.
That's vague.
Well, no, it's perfectly fine, except most city recorders I know are not his.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I noticed that. You know,
I noticed all
it's
those have changed.
yeah. You know,
Which is-
I identify.
I actually have attempted in places going through your charter where I could see, like, the mayor is
The mayor-
referred to as he,
Yeah, the mayor's still a man in our
the
charter.
judge
yeah.
is a he,
Yeah.
those things,
So
generally speaking.
have those corrections been made to be gender neutral? Okay.
Yeah, in some form or fashion, yes, they have. except I didn't catch that one.
Now, why do we put all this generality job description in there? Just, I mean, what's the purpose of it?
So that there's no question about what it is the city recorder is, as an officer, is supposed to.
Clearly lays out their role, their lane, what they do.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I like that.
And so we've beefed up this whole section about, you know, certain jobs, certain appointments and responsibilities. And quite literally, most of these we've actually lifted from other state law charters. And then you go to the compensation of mayor, and we've added alderman. Hence the, yeah, and I'm sure that's not quite as clear. This particular section, the compensation of mayor, was just the compensation of mayor. We added and alderman.
And actually, they used to pay the council.
Yeah, they used to get paid a long time ago.
If I can,
We could again.
if I can backtrack, and I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
We lay out pretty much what the city recorder's responsibilities are, but none of our other officers really. And I mean, do we? Why is that?
Well, I think because of the role that the city recorder has in terms of maintaining public records, maintaining official documents of the city, you actually, by state, that person in state law says that responsibilities, period.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying distract. I think
But
this is great to do, but why wouldn't we do that with the other officers?
Because most of the rest of them aren't laid out in the state statutes that way.
Okay, so the state statute really focuses on the city recorder, but really the other ones are just okay.
Well, there are assumptions about police chiefs that are made.
Sorry, Chief.
We got all kinds of assumptions about it.
All good, all good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, I was just curious as to why.
That's a good question. And as you flip the page, oh, by the way, as you flip the page, you'll notice that we've actually added a whole new section dealing with the town attorney. Because you have nothing about the town attorney.
We didn't want to leave you out.
Well, I think it's the first
I gotta
charter
change my
I've ever
email.
seen that didn't have a, I don't know if there's any other town that doesn't have some sort of provision for the town attorney.
The only one that I can think of, to be honest with you, is a town of about 150 people. Seriously, that's it. There's actually, there's 3 of those. That I work with. That's it.
And the only thing I'll say on this, just, you know, it is very unusual, but you might actually get, you don't have to have a town attorney as appointed as an officer, and there might be some benefit you could get from it by, the way I viewed it when I was hired is that basically I was hired pursuant to whatever contract we agreed to, so whatever you assign me to do, that's what I do, which by and large is consistent with these powers, but, you know, you could consider just hiring attorneys on an ad hoc basis to advise the town for whatever its needs are. But that, like I said, it's different, but it's.
Well, wouldn't a town attorney is an officer, and like a town attorney is your ethics officer.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Which is in part why we wanted to include that, because in most communities, the town or city attorney is in fact the ethics officer.
Exactly.
I thought we had that part in our charter about attorney being the ethics officer.
It is.
No, it's actually not in your charter, I don't think.
So I
It's in
think
your
it's a,
municipal code,
Oh, okay.
which is wholly different.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But we can put it in here.
We could.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just reading through that.
Oh, I know why. That's something she added. Kinda like the first one, the city recorder being a him.
Do we want to put in, under this area, that the town attorney is the ethics officer?
I wouldn't, because.
I don't
you
think I
can-
would.
Yeah, I mean, it's in your ordinance, and you can change your ordinance easily, so if you wanted to appoint someone else as a ethics officer, you could just do it by ordinance,
Yeah.
which.
It's easier to change ordinances and charters, per se. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on everything, just to make sure.
I wanna, before I forget, I wanna back up to one thing. Just ahead of this town attorney section, Ms. Hodge added, at the top of that page, she added two pieces, the number 2 and number 3, okay? Specifically, well, having the number 3 is important probably at some points in time to all of you to be able to be reimbursed and have your charter say that you are able to be reimbursed for expenses like going to training, like utility board training, for example, or elected officials academy training. Your charter now, your charter would allow that to be reimbursable without question. The other thing I'm going to point out to you is that she's added this provision on number 2, that the alderman can receive a salary that's determined by the council. There's a caveat that goes along with that, by the way. If you don't have a salary now, or if you did and you want to increase the salary, that increase cannot take effect until the next time you're up for election, if that makes sense.
So we'd really have, since we have every 2 years, we
Half
have
of you-
our
Half
staggered.
would get paid.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, it's exactly what winds up happening. So that, like for now, like, if you chose to do, well, with this budget, let's say, you chose to increase this, make us, aldermen get $500 a month. Just for, odd number stuff. That,
Pretty odd.
that way I know it sticks in your brain. That dollar amount actually would not, no one here would be eligible for that. The people who are elected in November would be the first people that could receive that benefit. And then whomever is still standing on the city council after November, you wouldn't be eligible until 2 years later for that same salary.
Couldn't we vote it in now to take effect after the 2022 election, so that everyone started at the same time?
No, you can't go in midterm. That's always been one of the issues. You can't alter a person's in a private act charter environment because it's the Constitution the way it is. You can't alter someone's salary either in a negative way or a positive way in midterm.
And there'd still be a midterm.
Yeah, well, because you all have
But since
staggered,
it's in effect, or voted on prior to this election,
the next folks who get through the next election would have that benefit first. And then the folks who follow them would then get that benefit later on.
Is it usually a salary or Cost
meeting?
per meeting that they attend.
I think before they
It
did
can,
per
it's
meeting.
actually,
Yeah.
it can be, it's an either or deal, actually.
Okay.
And in some cases, it's a per meeting. In some communities, it's per meeting. In some places, it's just a straight dollar amount per month.
Whether or not they attend the meetings.
Well, there's usually some caveats that go along with some of those.
Okay.
That, you know, if you miss so many meetings in a row, you know, you are, I don't know, docked the pay, but there are penalties that perhaps that go along with that. Then it gets convoluted.
I like it being a volunteer. I
So,
don't think you could pay us enough.
so let's,
Keep it volunteer.
so I just wanted to bring that, I wanted to
Keep
make
it
that,
that way.
let you see that, because it is kind of a unique, that the payment thing is kind of unique to elected officials in the state of Tennessee, especially with your charter.
Is that true with any elected official? I mean, like for instance, on a commissioner level, the county commissioner, because we dropped that. We were paid and then it was dropped, the amount was dropped
And then per
from
meeting.
100 to 25.
25.
It's supposed to be for everybody.
But you had to be at the meeting to get it.
And which is, what, I mean, you can do that.
The other part
Counties
is, mayor salary, did we always have a paid mayor salary position?
It used to be like $25 a year.
Okay.
That's what Ray Gilbert made.
It was a part-time.
Part-time.
It used to be part-time.
Way back.
Yeah, I think he went full-time with Bowman, like, towards the end of his term.
How many years ago was that?
15?
That was
long.
longer than that.
Whose term?
20,
Not since,
20 years.
it hasn't been that long since David Bowman, not 15 years, no.
Wait, say the last name again?
David Bowman,
Bowman.
and then Saber, and then
Oh.
Donnie.
Donnie.
It's been, well, he started.
Would it have been when
he
this
was
charter
here-
was done?
He was here 12 years.
91?
It was
It
For
was
David
at-
early
it was
90s.
at-
It was the early 90s, yeah.
I was gonna say, I started in 99, he was here.
How many cities ratio our size have a paid mayor position versus not in existence right now in the state of Tennessee?
I don't know that I know the exact number. But there are several that I know in this area that have paid full-time paid mayors.
Do they have city administrators also?
Not currently.
Okay. So I'm just saying, like, if we were to get a city administrator, then would most places, would they bump mayor down to part-time or
That's, yeah.
or whatever?
That's what I'm getting
I think
at.
that's just like, you know, I don't know at what point we're gonna talk about any of that, but,
That's,
and I don't know if that's part of this discussion, but it might, I mean, it's just something I just thought of.
and that's kind of where, you know, to point out, that's kind of where I'm thinking, like, again, would take effect, but that's what I was looking at, where a lot of places where they do have city administrators, and they do have CFOs, the mayor is kind of more in a count, and more compared to just a role of the council, in a way. I mean, it's still different, but it's kind of perceived that way, where the mayor has more of that area, and less city administrators, less CFOs. Am I
more
wrong in
ceremonial.
that? I mean, I know that there's everything, but
Well, it depends on the size of the community. In smaller communities, if you've got a city administrator, a lot of times the city administrator serves a dual role. And it depends on the community as to which role that is.
What would those, like, what would an example
Well,
that be?
Dover, I'll use that one first. The city administrator is the city recorder, and they have a separate CMFO. But if I go to Waynesboro, in Waynesboro, they have I think it's a city manager, actually. The city manager is a CMFO, and they have a separate city recorder. And the mayor is, in both of those situations, the mayor is a part-time person.
Do they oversee
Who?
the mayor? Do they oversee those two at all, or what is
Well, it's a situation, a lot of times what happens is the mayor and the city administrator work together. Because the city administrator is generally tasked with more of the day-to-day operational stuff that goes on. Working, tracking the grants, filling out the paperwork for the grants, making sure that the operational stuff that goes on with the sewer plant, the water plants, police department, fire department, all of those things are running smoothly. And that personnel, HR stuff is getting done the way it needs to get done. Which then typically lets the mayors in that situation focus on the things like to improve the image of the community, the economic development side, and the what is it that we want our community to look like and be. To the outside, to business owners, to the county, to the state, and get more involved in promoting their city. Not dealing with
the day-to-day?
The day-to-day,
stuff as much. That's
And that,
about the easiest way I know to explain it.
Now, is that if we were to adopt something like that, would we have to change the charter at that point? Then I guess we would.
Yes.
Wouldn't we?
Which is, and I know we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit.
but it takes effect again
but
at the end of.
there's,
Right.
yeah, towards the back of this bigger document. Well, yeah, it's under. I guess it's on page 15. And you all can't see it, but there's a place about the general duties of the mayor. On page 15. Because that section, most of that section, well, a bigger chunk of that section is what you have in your charter now. We've added a few things, taken a few things out. If at some point you wanted to do the city administrator, that second document that I sent you all, that 2 pages would slide into this area, the general duties of the mayor. As a matter of fact, it's the 2 pages that I sent you, I labeled it as section 13, because when Ms. Hodge did her revisions, what was section 11 became section 13.
Okay.
So
That's those 2 pages.
and that description of that 2 pages is quite literally lifted almost straight out of the general law mayor aldermanic chart in terms of responsibilities of a mayor in that situation when it's just the mayor, and or what occurs when there's a city administrator.
So we kind of need to decide one or the other.
At some point, yeah.
Okay.
But the way it works now, with, and this is true even with cities in the who have general law charters, the smaller communities, and there are a number of them, they already have this in their charter. You know, there's the 2 pages I gave you all. It's in their charter, but because of their size, they don't feel that they're ready for a city administrator. That, you know, there's not enough to do. There are other priorities in their communities, because quite frankly, most communities, especially if you have water and sewer systems, you have to have a CMFO, and there's literally no getting around that at all. You have to do it, or someone who fits that qualification. So it's a matter of choice. In some cases, it becomes a matter of choice. What can you afford to do?
Is this something we could add but not adhere to directly right now, like the other communities are doing then?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that way,
Because
if we decide to change, we don't have to go back through all this again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, would that take, if I guess we couldn't do it until the next election of the mayor, though, at that point, correct?
You could.
Do it right now.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you couldn't, unless, well, I guess you'd still have to
Well,
pay,
I would-
the salary would have to be the same, but
Yes.
the duties would change.
The duties can change. That's what I was going to ask. Salaries are different. I think salaries have to go
Yes.
towards the end of
Okay.
it. But duties, when that takes effect, does that take effect when the legislature goes through, passes it? When is the effective date of any of these changes?
When it comes back to you all and you approve them all by 2/3 vote.
Okay.
That's, I mean, ultimately.
At that moment.
And to be able
Referendum.
to pay whoever we,
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
But it would just give us the option to
Mhm.
flip the switch, so to speak,
Yeah.
when we were ready, without having to go back through all this again.
Yes, but it would be cleaner.
I guess just to pick one or the other.
What I was gonna say, it'd be cleaner if at any point in time that were an option to make that change, it'd be cleaner to do it just prior to a budget or an election, actually, but both of those things really. To try to time it such that you're not creating an issue, as many issues with a transition like that.
You're just saying, just like, we go ahead and put this in, but don't actually transition to one or the other until an election and
Well,
budget
you've already
cycle.
got, I mean, you already have the mayor that does this, the biggest part of this.
Right,
Right. So that person stays in place and does those
right.
things.
Basically, we're just not paying for 2 people.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things on this, because I think this does get to the issue that y'all have talked about, or kind of talked around, at least I've talked around by maybe dodging questions, but the overriding thought or law is that whatever's in your charter, you can't supersede by ordinance. So whatever this says with respect to the powers of the mayor is going to control regardless of what you do by ordinance or policy. In your current charter, which it's kind of difficult to read, you almost have to look back at what you've got and then look at this. The mayor's powers are pretty vague. It just says the mayor will be the chief executive officer in charge of supervision of all officers of the municipality and see that all laws and ordinances shall be enforced. If you adopt something like this, it then gives the mayor these very specific powers, subject to you doing an ordinance to give those powers to the town administrator. So I think it will result in a change, even in the short term, if you don't pass an ordinance appointing a town administrator later. you know, you can do whatever you want, but I don't want you to adopt something and then have more powers somewhere else in the short term. For example, and Gary highlighted this, so you may, you may want to speak to this, but that first section 1, where it says the mayor is authorized to promote, discipline, suspend, and discharge all employees, subject to the town's personnel policy. That is not currently in either your personnel policy or your charter. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the mayor can make temporary appointments and suspensions, but all approvals have to come through the council for permanent positions. So that's a major change if you do that. But then maybe more importantly, if you put that language in there, then you wouldn't be able to delegate that authority to a town administrator later, because it's in your charter that's the mayor's responsibility. So I don't know that that's a road you want to go down, unless you want that to stay with the mayor, or to go to the mayor. And one other thought I had, and Gary made this, I was going to run this by you. Under your current charter, you've got the authority to create new offices by ordinance. So you could go ahead and create a position of town administrator as an office and assign it whatever duties you wanted, so long as it didn't conflict with what's in your charter, which again is kind of vague. So I do think you want to shore that up a little bit, but you can create a town administrator and assign that office whatever positions you want without specifically putting it in your charter. Now, most cities have it in their charter that are in a mayor, aldermanic, general law, or if they want to create that position. But I think under your current charter, you've got enough authority to do that by ordinance right now.
I think it's definitely worth examining.
And then the one just before, I don't want to forget this, but the veto power of the mayor looks like it's staying in with this draft. But then there was one, I was trying to see what the other part was struck. And I don't know whether, Gary, you looked at this, or Alicia maybe did, that last clause regarding the veto. I didn't quite understand why that was struck.
I mean, I absolutely believe in the power of the veto. The thing about our veto is 4 votes passes it, veto happens, 4 votes override it. So really it's kind of like a back and forth. Really, it's, you know, it's almost comparable with our state legislature at 51%. So is that pretty standard to not get? I mean, what I'm saying is, do we want to give a provision for the veto power to be stronger, or do we want to keep it at that 2/3? Is that something that's I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Customary to do it with 2/3.
Yeah, it is.
Then that
It
covers it.
is.
Enough said.
In those places where the mayor has a veto authority, the override is by 2/3 vote.
Okay.
Whatever
The size of the council is, or anything like that. So.
It is one of those clauses that we see in situations where mayors have the ability to veto ordinances. It's consistently that way.
Okay, so I gotcha. Now, not every town is 6 members of their.
No, some have 12.
12.
So it's even better.
Yeah.
Twice. I'm the one that's got 3.
I know several that have 3, to be honest. So it just depends on the size of the community and the way they're set up.
Gotcha. And that's just where we fall with 6 members. So it just kind of,
Yeah.
it's just basically a
Mhm.
majority all the time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And I would say keeping the veto would be good. Just if something did come down the road where we ended up growing or something like that, it still keeps that, retains it. Not that it matters at this point, but
It's
anyways,
checks and balance.
Yeah.
it's checks and
Something like
balance.
that.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. It's more almost like a statement at this point, but it's still a check and balance.
Oh, I just want everybody to know what the effect of it would be. I mean,
Where were we before I started?
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, let me slide back to, we kind of were sitting on C8. I think that's where we were just finished on town attorney. You actually, in your charter, it's, for whatever reason, you all had tax assessments, enumerated powers of town council. Still can't figure out why. But what Alicia Hodge has done, basically in the ensuing pages through 9, 10, and 11, and I think 12, is to insert, okay, 12 and 13. The authorities that typically we see in charters laid out numerically in terms of what the authorities and responsibilities that the town can have. And so and I think you actually had most of these, well, not most, you had several of these, because when you get past number 39, you see that she struck out like the next page and a half.
It makes it easier to identify where that section is when reading it, instead of it just being one giant paragraph. Okay.
Which is part of what she did, the reason for it, and to actually incorporate into your charter some things that you ought to have, that other cities have. A lot of other cities, actually, if not most, that don't show up in your charter. I mean,
Gary, I do think that should say the council shall have the power by ordinance or resolution as appropriate, or something to that, not just limited by ordinance, and that's just the first sentence.
yeah, I gotta flip back to it. Yeah. Yeah, or resolution as appropriate.
That's a lot to look over. It organizes it better. So.
Yes. Well, and it gives you information that, frankly, unless you were to go hunting through the state statutes, you wouldn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases. And that wastes a lot of time for everybody. So then that takes us then now back to, we get back onto page C15 and we kind of run through all those things we've already talked about. Council meetings were struck out because it's actually been moved. We've added more to it, and that's actually shows up early on in the charter. One thing I'm when you get back down to 16, as it relates to judicial authority, we've purposely taken the mayor out of that. And we've taken a few sentences out and added several more as it relates to the town judge. the mayor's been removed because state law does not, unless the mayor happens to be an attorney, they can't serve as a judge. And I don't have any, I can't think I've ever seen the mayor that's been an attorney yet. And really, that's about all that we really have touched. We did some cleanup of the hotel motel tax thing, city to town type stuff.
And I know that's a minor point, but I'm assuming, I'm almost certain the town was probably chartered originally as the town of Carthage. But
Oh, yeah.
if you want to be the city of Carthage, you can change it in this amendment.
We got enough on our plate right now.
Well, I mean, that's just telling him city instead of town.
It's
just a word.
It's just a
Yeah,
word.
but we're the town,
Well,
we're the town, come on.
Yeah, I tell you what,
I just don't want to change my
I-
email.
I've been down that road, and you'd be surprised how many folks get truly bent out of shape
Yeah, we're a town.
if you change.
You
whether
could
or not
sway
your
my
town
vote
is-
one way or the other. I don't feel like I'm.
Trust me, I have been there, I have done that, and I've got the scars to show it. That's why I wasn't gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. No.
Basically, the last part's just definitions.
Yes,
Is what we're looking at. Okay.
yeah. Well, the last part's really hotel tax, the last 5 or 6 pages.
We'll need some hotels.
Other than that,
Well, I've enjoyed this workshop. I've learned a lot.
So how do we proceed
well,
now?
I think we need to study this quite a bit more.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
if you want to,
Two readings.
Mhm.
We have to
No,
have 2 readings. right?
just one.
Just one.
Because you have to, on the front end, you adopt it by resolution.
Yeah.
Do we do it section by section? Or do we take the
No,
whole?
I think you do the whole thing, whatever sections you would prefer to change. What I can do in the meantime is to start, because there's a resolution format that you need to utilize. We have that format. I can start plugging in some of the changes. Because it'll be a lengthy little resolution. And what I can do is that as you have an opportunity to discuss this some more, if you decide there's things that you want to not do or take out, or some other things you do want to do, it'd be easier to make those changes kind of on the fly as you're talking. And
I mean, I think a lot of this is just cleaning for the
a
most
lot of
part.
it is cleaning.
There's one section that is more keeping people in their lanes where they need to be, and that's probably what we need to examine the most. Is that keeping those lanes clear?
Right.
But the rest of it's a lot of cleaning. A lot of organization. I like it, but I do want to have time to look at that other area, and I think we should all definitely spend some time on it. But.
And is there anything that we've missed in that part of the conversation?
I mean, I think there's more, but at the time we were given and what we need to do right now, I think this is just a good start for this year. We can do more down the road. We don't need to do everything right now.
Now, this is enough to take on right now.
Yes.
Well, and you may not even want to take on all of this, to be honest. I mean, you may
That's my
just
thing.
want to do the stuff that cleans it up, removes the stuff that you literally cannot do, and adds some of the language, that clarifies responsibilities in lanes in certain areas. And that may be what you want to do this year, and then come back next year and tackle some of the rest.
Sam, what are your reservations on taking all this on right now? I'm just curious.
I just wanna sit down and read it all.
I mean, not what I mean. Not right now. I didn't mean like tonight, but
No, I'm not saying, I just wanna know if we have the option to do so.
yeah. I don't think we should vote on anything tonight. Period.
No.
Yeah.
But
What's
tell
our,
us our time crunch.
yeah, I was gonna say,
again.
what's our time frame?
Small.
That's what I was thinking. How, like,
This meeting.
Your
Next meeting,
Your
really,
next
isn't it?
meeting, I think you need to
That's what we discussed.
talk about what you want to move forward with.
So if I could give us a format, maybe I think that we should be prepared to make definitely the grammatical things, the organizational things. I think that's something that we all probably all know that we need to do, and that's a definite. And then
Yeah, let's
maybe
get that out of
we,
the way first.
yeah, maybe we split that part first just to get it out of the way, and then the second part, that's where we'll have more of our discussion. So we don't throw all that out just in case we don't agree on the second part. Would you all say that would be a good format for our next meeting? Okay.
I'm good
and
with
then
it.
if we just cleaned it up and sent it to be cleaned up, we would just have to go back through it all again.
Yeah.
Send it back to the state to be approved,
Well,
whatever changes.
The other thing that that would allow you to do is if you clean up stuff that we know needs to be cleaned up, things that are relatively simple in nature to make changes to, do those. It gives you some more time to, to ponder and discuss
Yeah.
other substantial changes, because you can come back next December and revisit those things.
Yeah.
I do have one question. Does this require a public input or public hearing, since we're changing the laws for, or the Bible of the city, basically?
I think when it comes back to you all, you can have a public hearing.
Okay. It would be nice, I think, to have the public weigh in on this.
That's why I was trying to look on my phone, but I couldn't, is there not a public notice, public hearing requirement before it's passed? Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't, well, there's a requirement. I mean, I think it wouldn't be bad to hear from the public, but it's just we're in such a time crunch. And that's why I think we should separate it, because I don't think anyone's going to object to the grammatical changes from the public, but maybe see a few other, things. It might not be required, but, just invite the public to say what they want to say on it, And also go ahead and advertise, like, contact us right now if you see some issues. Whoever's watching or writing, contact us immediately,
If anybody's paid attention to your meeting notices,
yeah.
they've had that warning, because this agenda was pretty clear about what this conversation was gonna be.
Yeah. But I mean, to your point, I wouldn't object to
Yeah.
just putting one out there, whether it's required or not, just to, but I see your
Publish
point too, but.
Publish the possible change, I don't know,
Well,
just to let, know.
Let's do it after the next meeting.
You don't want to pay for that.
Okay.
Trust me,
Okay.
you can't afford to do that. That'd take 3/4 of the newspaper,
Okay.
quite honestly.
Let's do like Cole said at the next meeting, let's do the cleanup work, and then the issues that appear to be changes, take those.
Take those in stride.
Do we need to make a motion to that effect, or?
Yeah,
or
I
not?
think we can.
Okay.
No.
We'll just have on the agenda,
Just put under new
Just-
business or whatever.
yeah, charter amendments.
Yes.
They're amendment,
Yeah, yeah. And I'll be here with my computer.
We're gonna need some coffee for that meeting.
Not really.
Should be, it's already done pretty much, right?
Is
Yeah,
it-
it's literally, all it is moving things from, adjusting some stuff to fit this into the resolution format that has to be sent down to national.
Would it be possible if you go ahead and send us, before the meeting?
I'll be lucky if I get it done by the time your meeting
I
happens.
got you.
But given everything, I mean, seriously, given the stuff I've got to do between now and then, because I'm gonna go sit and have this conversation with Gordonsville next week.
Okay.
Pretty
I
soon.
forget, we've got a meeting
conversation.
in like a week and a half anyway, so.
So, just so everybody's clear and I'm clear, your decision is first you're gonna work with the cleanup language, is that right?
We're gonna work
Clean
on
it
that,
up.
Tackle that
and then we're
first.
gonna tackle the,
So that will be the next agenda item, just so we know what to put on.
I mean, the whole thing's gonna be under the same part of the agenda. I mean, we could.
It's amendment.
It's just, we can
Charter
motion
amendments.
we can motion for that, just to have it out of the way and done, so that we're good with that, and then we can put an amendment on that if need be. And then we can vote up and down the amendments, you know, and if we approve an amendment, great, if we don't, it moves on, at least the original motion with that still is out there. That'd be our little books we got from Mr. Jekyll.
Charter amendments
Okay,
is the agenda item.
okay, gotcha. Any further business that night?
Motion adjourned.
Second. So moved.
It's already passed then.